G'day YouTube, 49's Fine Silver here. G'day YouTube, 49's Fine Silver here. Today I'm going to do a little tricky one today. It's going to be this little gorilla. And it's going to be a little bit of a tough technique today, but I'll show you step by step. But before we get started, I have a new addition to the wall. I got a mail yesterday and it was from the Rat Stacker, and he sent me this postcard from Hawaii. It says, 49's Fine Silver, you are a gentleman and a scholar. I really appreciate all the effort and information you pack into every one of your videos. I just wanted to drop you a quick note of thanks. I've included my sticker for your wall. Mahalo, my friend, the Rat Stacker. Aloha. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rat Stacker. Your sticker, I'm not sure exactly where I put it yet, but I'll put it just there for now. Awesome. Anyone else who wants to get on my sticker wall and get a shout out, then feel free to send me over a sticker. All right, guys, I'll get started with this, and I'll just move the camera and get all my sanding equipment and all that sort of stuff prepared, and I'll get back to you. All right, thanks, guys. All right, guys, let's get started. We've got our piece. Now, if you try and just load it in, it's going to be really tough. So what you've got to try and do, and there's probably many ways of doing this, but this is just the way that I choose. So what I do is I get some plaster of Paris. I mix it up so it's fairly doughy, and then I fill in the gap between the body and the legs. And what I've done is I've made one already. Here it is. You can see where his body sits, and it just slips in on top. Now, they're very delicate, so be very careful, because if you break it, it's over and you only get one shot at it. So what I do is I try and gently fit him back in. Now, after I've made this plaster piece, I put it aside for a few days, sometimes up to a week, because if it's not completely dry, it's going to be a failure every time. Because what happens when liquid metal touches moisture, it reacts, it bubbles, it carries on. So what you've got to do is fit your piece back in to your plaster correctly, as best you possibly can. And there he is. So when you actually do put it in your sand, you don't need to fill up anything in the middle. That's how it looks. All right. So now, once I've got it into there, I then put it into my sand casting. The whole thing goes in. Try and get it square and straight, and you've got to push it down to at least the halfway point without breaking it. Again, it's very, very fragile, so take your time. Once you've got it into place, make sure you've got your edges correct. Now this, to me, is what I call a three-piece mold. A little bit like the last one I did with the stick of wire, but this particular one has another piece to it. So there it is. sitting in there. You've got your plaster piece and you've got your shape that you want, and everything's sitting as comfortably and as smoothly as you can get it. Righto. Next step, I use corn flour in the sock. Others use different stuff. There's different techniques. But again, this is the one that I use. Now make sure you've got your legs sitting correctly. Everything's neat and tidy. Next layer. Now, I think I should use my sieve just to give it a nice, I'll just fill up the hole first because I don't need that. Alright, now over the top of the pattern, I'll sprinkle over some sand. As fine a sand as I can get, because he's got some nice details. He's got fur, he's got a face and eyes and all that sort of stuff that I want to try and keep. So once I've got a nice little layer over the top, then what I'll do is I'll gently pack that first. That'll give room for all of the fur and eyes and mouth and whiskers or whatever there is to be able to be seen. Next, I'll firmly pack my sand over the top. And I'll probably give it a roll with the rolling pin. That's just what I do. Again, other people have their own techniques. You try and learn your own. Most of these things take years of practice to master. So don't give up, keep trying. But please be careful. Okay, I've got it set. I'll brush off all the sand. I'll give it another roll from this side just to be extra sure that it's packed down correctly. And then I'll take it apart. I'll put that aside, let you see this one. You can see his arms and legs and face. Looking pretty good. Just give it a tiny blowout just in case. Okay, now try and take this piece out gently. I don't want to disturb it too much. So I'll give it a little bit of a wobble. Make sure I don't damage anything. And if you do damage something, all you have to do is just smooth it out gently, blow out any excess that you have, gently put your piece back in. Once you've got your piece back in again, you can re-smooth. And put it back together again. Make sure you don't drop anything in it. Give it another roll. Sometimes when I think it's moved, I even put a little bit extra on it, just so when I hit it with the rolling pin again, it packs it down that extra little bit. Sorry about wobbling the camera just then. I'm just trying to put a lot of force on there. Clean it off again. And again, the more preparation you do on these pieces, the better your results will be. So Take your time. Okay, I'll give it another roll. I don't think you can roll it too much, you know. Up we go. Looking good. See if you'll come out a little bit better this time. You probably should. It's still tough. And it's kicked over again, just over there, you see that? So I brushed that aside again. I'll give it another little bit of powder. Blow it all off. Do it again. Little bit of a firm roll. And you just keep doing it until you're satisfied that you've got a nice shape. Oh, we nearly come out that time. Have a look at it. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Rightio, so now we have to decide which is the side that I'm going to do the sprue on. And I think I'm going to use a little bit smaller sprue today. I've got this little Allen key here. I think it's about 4 mil. It's a little bit smaller than the others. It's not a huge piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at this, decide whereabouts I think the easiest place to sand it off is going to be, and I think it's going to be right on his butt there. So I'm going to try and put the sprue right on that spot, which is just here. Now it needs to go in at a little bit of an angle this time. So I'll push it through. Look on the other side, it's come out right close to the edge, but that's okay. And then I'll cut out a sprue. I'll make it a little bit deeper. I'll smooth it out. Flip it back. Make sure my vent hole is correct. There you go. All looking good. Now, the next part. I've got to take my pattern. I've got to remove him back out very gently, because otherwise it'll break. It's already starting to chip. Sometimes you've got to put them in the oven just to soften everything enough to be able to move them. You want to be able to keep the shape in his toes, and hopefully he'll just come out in a second. Again, it all takes a little bit of patience and care. And there you go. Now it's still holding on. Okay, and I lost a bit. It wasn't a big bit, luckily. I lost a little piece. That'll mean I'll have to sand something later, but it's the only one I've got. So I've got to get back in to the exact shape. So very carefully, it was that side, very carefully stick your plaster piece back in, which is looking pretty good. Put your top back on. Again, I give it a gentle roll and flip it over. Okay, now my sprue's running down on an angle there. So when I pour the metal, I want to pour it so it goes down the hole. So that's the position it needs to be. All right, let me get some metal organised. I got a brick here. Can you see it? You can, but you can't see where the crucible is going to sit. So I'll stop the camera, I'll set up again, and let you see what's going on. All right guys, hopefully you can see. So now in my sprue I have a little bit left over from the other day. I'll add another red kangaroo of 4/9 fine silver, and let's get underway. So I'll fire up the torch. I'll watch you do the whole melt this time. Okay guys, make sure also when you're doing this, safety comes first. Use these glasses, because if you don't, you'll damage your eyes. Looks like it's done. Let me just get a water bucket over here, see if I can put out that flame. Oh, it's still pretty soft. That's good, that showed you I had the metal correctly. Just put that out. All right. Let's take it apart. See what we've got there. Oh, it's looking pretty good. See if I can avoid some of that smoke. Let's just give him a little bit of a scrape off. He looks like he might be all right. Only one way to find out. All right, he looks pretty good. Let's take off his, you see what I mean? He completely destroy it every time, but I can see his little hands there. Brush some of that off. And there we have him. I'll just give him a little bit of a... His legs have all turned out beautiful. A little bit of an extra bit on just there. I think that might have been the piece that fell off. Alright, so I'll cut off the sprue. I'll give him a bit of a brushing. I'll file that little bit of leg and foot there. And then I'll bring him in and I'll show you. Alright guys, I'll be back in a sec. Okay guys, here he is. Now, he doesn't look too bad. Now what I've noticed though is there must have been a tiny little bit of moisture still left in that plaster. And so what it's done, I'll just show you under closer inspection. This foot at the front here hasn't turned out. If you turn him over, you can see the inside of the back legs there. I'm not very pleased with either. There's a little bit of a bubbling. The underside of his stomach has a slight hole in it just there, which I'm not happy with. His face, the details on his face, let me just move this out of the way. Okay, the details on his face haven't come up anywhere near as good as I'd like. So that just goes to show you that any moisture that's involved in your moulds, it's involved with your sand, creates problems. Now, you know, you could probably sand him up and get away with it, but look at that foot. That foot there is really not good. If you look at the back feet over here, see if I can get a good shot at it. But he's got really nice toes. He's got a thumb over here that's not quite as good as I'd like. There's there's a few faults, you know. You see how he's got fur on this side as well. Nice looking fur. And on this side, it's a little bit smooth, showing that the details didn't come through on that. So guys, whenever you're doing this type of mould with the extra piece of plaster, make sure it's completely dry, because otherwise you'll get a result that you won't be happy with. So look at his little face. Never mind, fella. I'll melt you down and I'll have another try another day. Alright guys, I'll put this back just here. Stick him on there. Let him go for a bit of a spin around for a minute. You'll be able to pick out all the little problems in him. But that's the way I do it, guys. And probably at least 75% of them turn out alright. But there's always going to be that 25% of failure. So don't give up. Keep trying. And I'll come up with a new technique one of these days that might be a little bit more closer to the 100% mark. But until then, catch you on the next one. So that's it from me. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.